still some people who use a little more and better quality food. There's all kinds of efforts. The UN FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, repeatedly recognizes Nicaragua as being exemplary in increasing the amount of food, quality of food, distribution of food, and in fighting malnutrition and subnutrition.
And by the way, the woman on the right there next to Alyssa, that's Ileana Quintero, who's a member of the household. I don't think we've seen her picture yet. And here's the shelter that we visited. So these families, all their homes have lost their homes or are temporarily displaced until the water goes down. But lots of kids, lots of folks there. Kids seemed fine. The parents were a little stressed out, but okay.
And all these kids, they were still getting to school.
And we were there during mealtime, so the families were being called up to receive their food. Shortly after we visited, they kind of changed how they did things a little bit, and the families were provided small propane stoves to use to cook their own food, and they got their dry goods, their rice, beans, or whatever, and then were able to make their own meals, so that they still had they felt a little independence, and were able to do some of the work themselves and feel like they weren't completely helpless, and they could cook their own food for their own families even though they had lost their homes. And so it was good. A lot of people were pretty happy about that. Now this woman, who is this is all still in Esteli. There's what's the name of the program?
Zero Usury.
Zero Usury is a loan program financed by the government that is set up for women, small business owners, or women who would like to start their own small business. It's very low interest loans to these women, and you have to come and you have to have a business plan. And it doesn't have to be anything complicated. It can be something simple. I want to buy a sewing machine and make clothes to sell. This woman here, Molino means mill. She had a mill to grind corn, and in these parts, tortillas are very, very common daily food. Everybody gets up and goes to the mill and gets their corn ground into the masa, the dough, and goes home and makes their tortillas. And so this woman, she was already in business, but her motor had burnt out, and without the loan that she got, she would have gone out of business. But here she is with her mill, and she gets up at 3, 4 in the morning every morning and starts grinding corn and make tortillas. And I believe she also makes tortillas to sell, as well as providing the mill services to other women in the neighborhood.
The other thing about the program is you have to have a business, or just say, I want to have a business. You get on the list. Every month, like I just read, there's several thousand women are just ready to get into the program and receive loans for their businesses. The one other qualification is you need to associate yourself with a group of women in similar circumstances. That becomes a support group, and they actually help each other. And my understanding is your group is then responsible for your loan. As a group, you take responsibilities for the loan. Very low interest, 4%. The banks want 10% or more. There's a 96, 97% payback rate. Very, very successful. And if you pay back your loan, then you can qualify for another loan. And I'm trying to remember the figure. I believe it's somewhere around 130,000 women so far, and every month several thousand more receive loans. Now, one morning I spent interviewing a gentleman who was in the Departamento of the state of Esteli. He was the representative from the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry. He was telling me about the various programs benefit the rural poor and to increase production. And at some point, he gave me lots of information, went online, showed me the information about the programs and how they work, showed me the contracts that the poor farmers would sign once again, as groups, as cooperatives, where they're working together and responsible together. They get a loan, a low-interest loan. They have certain requirements to keep 20% of the cash in the bank, et cetera, et cetera. And at some point I said, well, could I meet some of these people? And he said, when do you want to go? I said, how about tomorrow? He said, okay, call this gentleman. And then we agreed to head out to the country the next morning. He's an what was his name? Will. He's an agricultural technician, of which there are thousands. This is a list of women in a program. You heard the program that was called Zero Usury. This program is called Zero Hunger.
May I have your attention, please? The library will be closing in 5 minutes. If you have materials to check out, please bring them to the checkout desk. Thank you.
Zero Hunger. It's also, its official name is Bono Productivo Agricultural, I believe. Agricultural productivity bonus. But anyway, what it is that poor women can sign up, get involved in the program, and originally they had a set package of benefits they delivered. I was told that now they're tailoring it to the individual woman's circumstance over time. One thing they do is they give the woman a pregnant cow, a pregnant sow, a flock of chickens, sometimes plants, seeds, tools, and then agricultural technical advice from people like him. They found out, you could give a pregnant cow to a woman if her land is not of sufficient size, quality, etc. You might not be doing her a big favor. She can't feed the cow, etc. Anyway, so they've learned as they've gone along. But this program has benefited, I believe, it's over 80,000 women. And I just read there's several thousand being awarded packages as we speak. So he has a list of women there who, like this woman. This woman, this is her cow. This cow this is her 4th calf, so she's been in the program for a while now. The program started about 5 years ago. I believe she kept one of her calves and she sells the other. Many people in this situation, they're producing milk, they're producing pork, they're producing chicken and eggs, excess calves, excess produce she can sell to her neighbors. If she sells calves, chickens, piglets to her neighbors, then they become more productive. She's a widow, by the way, but it's always, up until now, it's always gone to the woman, through the woman. It's her property. She's now producing milk, she's producing cheese, she's feeding eggs to an extent. Her cousin came by and he's eating her stuff too. So she's feeding a lot of people. She has some income, so she's productive. She has some income. Her family is eating better. Another aspect of this program with the man in SMB who was running the department's office there said, part of the strategy here is to feed people better, to get people a little income. It's also to get people feeling secure and comfortable in the country so they don't migrate to the city. Because all over the world, it's a big problem for poor people migrating to the city, overwhelming the services, setting up shanty towns, etc. And he said their statistics were showing that it is working. More people are staying in the country. Like one woman out there said to me, she said, it's beautiful here. We got trees, we got butterflies, we got birds. Now if they have food and other things we'll be talking about, it makes it much more comfortable for people to stay in the countryside. This is her home. Here you'll see some roofing material. This is part of a government program called Plan Techo, Plan Roof. 400,000 families, the poorest families, have received free roofing material and nails. It's not that much, it's 10 sheets of metal, a couple pounds of nails, but for these people it makes all the difference, being able to stay dry. In this neighborhood out in the country, everybody had a new roof. 400,000 families, the average in the countryside is 5.5 or 6 per family, maybe say 5. That's 2 million people, so over a third of all the people in the country have received these roofs from the government in the last 5 years.
And you see these are very simple houses, the rough-hewn board walls and their dirt floors. And we mentioned all the rains and all the flooding earlier. And if you don't have your roof that keeps the water out, it would be pretty miserable for a good part of the year.
These people are very happy with this development. And there are actually over 40 government programs to assist people, largely the poor, women, and children. Successful programs. Often simple things like this. The government says, what do people need? The government actually operates on a comprehensive plan called the Human Development Plan. It's a long-term plan saying, what do people need? How can we get there? And it's, they call it a joint responsibility. The government has a role to play, the people have a role to play. Just down the road, we walked down and met some fellows, a bean farmer. I remember they've just been going through torrential rains. This farmer just lost half of his bean crop. This fellow here, really nice guy, really liked him. This is his bean field you see behind him. These are a couple of his neighbors. I said to him, do you use any machinery or how do you plan to work your field? He said, I'll show you what I use. You see this fellow's machete. He took his machete, grabbed one of these sticks off the pile, chopped an end on it, and said, this is the way I plant my bean field. And that's the way he does it. That whole field. He plants by poking a stick in the ground and planting the beans. Real happy fellow, though. I asked him how things were out there now, and he said, well, right there you can see that's a cistern there. He said, we have chlorinated water now. Thanks to the government, kids are healthy. So we have a clinic down the road. There's a nurse there every day. Doctor comes once a week. Schools down the roads. The education is now totally free. Previously, you had to pay some fees. Electricity. These people have electricity now. It's a program with the government. They actually are near a road that goes to the next apartment, and that's been newly paved. I said, Can you read? People read? He said, everybody, no, I said, can the children read? The children know how to read? He said, everybody knows how to read, except a few old people. And there are special programs to teach them. And by the way, I'll go back. When he said that, I asked this other gentleman here, and I said, so do you know how to read? And he said, well, I'm blind. And he said I would learn how to read, but I'm blind. And we'll talk later about programs to help the handicapped or the disabled. And by the way, that farmer said, I said, so what problems do you have now? He said, life is beautiful here now, except for this damn hurricane. He said, it wasn't really a hurricane, to him it was a hurricane. Because this part of the country, usually the remnants of hurricanes come across, and it means rain, 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 rain. And he got rain, 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 rain. And he said, besides that, life is beautiful. Went down the road and met with a woman who got the low-interest loans from the government. And this is an expensive breeding boar here, and produces these, which have brought her enough profit that she's been able to put her older daughter through university, which is a big deal. Went down another group of hog raisers. This another super nice guy. I really like this guy. You can see out in front of his place, this is a campaign sign. We're in the middle of the campaign season for the presidential election. This is late October. The election is going to take place on the 6th of November. And this is Daniel Presidente. Every political party in Nicaragua has colors and a number. Okay, and that's the Sandinista colors, and they're number 2 on the ballot. Obviously supported the government. And this, I said I wanted, this is his hog pens here, and I said I wanted to take his picture. He said, oh, I'm dirty. And I said, Man, it's your work, it's dignified. And he said, you're right, it's dignified. And he hit the post for his picture. Real nice fellow. And this is what he produces. And then we were going to head back to the city, and on our way back, somebody came out and flagged the car down. They wanted to talk to the technician, had some problem or some questions. And while he went in to meet with people, I saw these ladies across the street. They were obviously friendly to me, so I went over to talk to them. You see she's holding up the... Now, in Nicaragua, it does mean peace, does mean V for victory, but what it really means, what it really meant now, was the number 2. You see she has the number 2 painted on her house. It means vote for the president. I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure why that's happening. It means vote for the president, re-elect the president, vote for number 2. So I never talked to him. I talked to the girls, to the teenage daughters, and once again you see the dirt floor, the rough view. This is the shack. I asked the girls about school. They said they liked school. It was right down the road. The older girl said that her favorite subjects were mathematics, Spanish and mathematics. And I asked if she was ever thought about going on to higher education. Her mother said, the problem with people like us is if you can qualify academically and you can get to a public university, it's about $25 a semester. They might be able to come up with that. But the problem is getting there, room and board, eating while you're there. But we talked about that because the government's providing more and more scholarships with a preference to people from rural areas. So she and I talked about the possibility that if she works really hard, could pass the test and qualify for a scholarship, she might be able to go to school. And she said that she has been thinking that she'd like to be an engineer. And I thought it was pretty cool that this girl living in a shack thinks that it might be possible that she can be an engineer and help her rebuild the country.
So, speaking of rebuilding the country, he mentioned earlier that in the little community we were in, there was a new road going through the area. And road building is something that we noticed everywhere we went. When we were down there 4 years ago, we did a lot of driving because we drove all the way down there. And the road's condition was not optimal. Everywhere we went, there were, huge potholes and roads that had been paved and been broken and just paved over, and there were chunks of pavement and potholes and this and that. And they were really bad. We punctured our oil pan just trying to get to the next city and all that. But here, everywhere we go, everywhere we went, we saw new roads or works in progress, like this one. This is a road leading out of Esteli towards a town in the northwest called El Sauce. And a lot of they do use asphalt pavement, but also this is very popular. They're called araquinos, these interlocking blocks. They seem to work really well. They last a long time. If they have a problem with a section of it, they just pull the blocks out and fix it up and put new blocks in. Of course, it's tropical, so they don't have to worry about freezing and that changing things. They seem to work quite well. We saw a lot of araquino both in the city and in the countryside.
Traditionally here for decades, the main transportation within cities and between cities and towns is used North American school buses. This is typical. Often they're painted more colorfully, more beautiful. And this is quite typical. Here's another one. This is just taken out of a car window. This is going at speed down the highway, and you see the hog strapped on the top of the bus. The bus is so full that people are hanging out the back. Not the safest, most comfortable. If you were an older woman going to visit your grandchildren, it's quaint, seems kind of cool, but it ain't that great. You know what I mean? At least in the city of Managua, in the last few years, now they have totally converted to modern buses. They got rid of all the school buses. These new buses have come from Mexico. This is a Mexican one, and from Russia. And they've kept the fare the lowest, by far the lowest in the region. It's 2.5 quarters, about 11 cents to ride the bus. Modern buses, some of them have handicapped access. Here's one of the Russian buses. And another thing before I forget, I'm going to tell you, one of the things that I was absolutely, and I studied the situation for the year before I went down. And I knew I was going to find good things happening. One of the things that impressed me the most is not only are they working on virtually every problem that the society has and making progress, but for every problem they have a plan, a long-term plan, a short-term plan, a long-term plan, 10, 20, 30-year plans. Transportation in the process right now, and consulting with the Japanese. By the way, we've done a lot of transportation work in Nicaragua. I read an interview with a Japanese engineer who's been building bridges, and this is very common what you hear from people's experiences in Nicaragua. He said, wow, you know, the Nicaraguans I worked with were really good, and we built some really good bridges. The man was proud of his work and what he had done. He said, I hope to come back and build some more bridges. That's people's experience in Nicaragua. They come, they have a good experience. The money and the effort is used to actually do something constructive that helps people. People go back home and say, hey, we should do some more. I mean, things work in this country. We get things done. We make a difference. The Japanese are going to come and help them do a study. I think it's going to take a year or two, maybe it was a year and a half to do the study, to come up with a 30-year transportation plan. What does our society need? How can we achieve those goals? And they have plans like that in many, many areas. In our country, what plans do we have? The only thing I know of where this society has a long-term plan and strategy on is war making. They think about war decades ahead. They have people that meet and think, what kind of wars are we going to have 50 years from now, and what weapons are we going to need? I'd much prefer if we thought that we need a mass transportation system, that we need a medical system, and what are we going to need 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now so that we can have a decent functional society. We're going across the big lake, Lake Colciboco, Lake Nicaragua. This is taken from afar. This wasn't quite going yet, but I think real soon after this wind farm came online. The reason I wanted to show you that one of the great accomplishments of Nicaragua is in the area of electricity, and particularly moving towards sustainable, renewable sources of electrical generation. When we were down 4 years previously, the electricity went off all the time. Ever since we popped a hole in our oil pan, way out in the mountains, a little town where there was no mechanic shop. There were some guys that worked on vehicles, ad-lib and stuff, and I was doing something else. It was a 7-hour process for a fellow with what little tools I had in my van and a couple of things he brought to get an oil pan off and back on. I mean, that is the conditions we were dealing with. And we found a guy who said, I can weld it if you can get it off. So once it was off, they took it to get it welded, and just before they were going to do the welding, electricity went out. And that was common. Electricity was going off all the time. I went to examine the water system. Their biggest problem, well, there were many problems, we worked on it, some years before, was they never knew when the electricity was going to go off. And it was hard on the electronic controls. If they got an advance alert, okay, it's going to go off fine. The blackouts were just endemic, okay? In the 3.5 years, after we came back 3.5 years, it never happens. Absolutely reliable electrical system. Back 5 years ago, 50-some percent of the people had electricity. Now it's over 2/3. In the next 5 years, they plan on getting electricity to 85, 90% of the people. And after 5 years, the next 5 years, that'll be 85 to 95% sustainable, renewable sources. Either wind, geothermal, they tap the volcanoes, produce steam, generate electricity, hydro, some biomass, some solar. After Brazil and the whole Latin American envision they are tops in making progress towards sustainable electricity generation.
So the island that's in the middle of Lake Nicaragua, we did mention that we visited that island there, Ometepe. This is a view of the larger of the two volcanoes that make up that island, kind of on the ferry ride over there. And that Volcán La Concepción, and it's showing signs that it may erupt sometime in the near future, but it was pretty quiet for now. Very, very beautiful island, very lovely scenery. Here is the oldest tree on the island, and it's very big. We couldn't get a picture that had any reasonable amount of the tree in it, but you can see us marveling at it, if that gives you an idea. It was right there on the edge of the lake. And then here's the view from at sunset when we were returning back to the mainland. So here's another volcano that we went to visit while we were there. We visited a few of them. This is Volcán Mombacho, which is an extinct volcano near Masaya. And it's a national preserve, wildlife preserve area. And we walked part of the way up it, but fortunately, a truck going by stopped to give us a ride. Otherwise, we may not have made it all the way to the top to the crater. But I'm glad that we did because it was beautiful up there. This is a shot, you can see this is the old crater, and it's all overgrown with dense, thick jungle, and there's birds and butterflies of every size and color everywhere. We could hear howler monkeys across the crater from us. We didn't see any on this walk, but we could hear them. Very beautiful. And it overlooks Lake Nicaragua. And that chain of islands over there are the Islas de Granada. And then right here is the city of Granada, which was the capital during the Spanish colonization. So it's a very old, historic, kind of a touristy town.
This is a little change. So we were down there visiting those volcanoes south of Managua, staying in a home that belonged to some friends of ours. And we used it to commute to Managua. The best road in the country is between Masaya and Managua. It's the only multi-lane highway that I know of. So it was a pretty easy commute, about 45 minutes. So we went up one day, and a friend of mine had set me up with a contact with a woman who works on a project. It's a joint project of the mayor's office of Managua and the Spanish government. And it works out here. This is, as you can see, a garbage truck. Says the mayor's office of Managua. Once again, you see some people giving the sign of number 2, vote for the president. You also notice a lot of these young people have a bag with them because they want to get into the garbage to do recycling. Here's some of the housing at the dump. 960 people live at the dump, including 600 children. But now things are looking up at the dump. People are very happy out at the dump. They now have committees, elected committees. We met with members of one of the committees. There's a young man, an older woman. This committee had 11 members, 7 women, 4 men of different ages. And they make decisions about their communities and relate to the city government and to the project. Now, these children were born at the dump. Most all of these children out here were born at the dump. They told us until recently the dump was always on fire. They lived in toxic smoke. This is where most of the dump has now been closed in and trying to turn it into a more modern sanitary landfill. Only one end of it is still open. There are big, huge vent pipes coming out to venting off the methane. Here's the credentials of one of the committee members showing that she's elected to represent the people. Here's a view of the active part of the dump. You can see the vultures. The Recyclers drive their trucks right out here and buy the recycling on the spot. You can see people working up in there, and you can see the vultures on top. There's a couple of young people coming out, bags of recycling. Peace symbol on the girl's shirt. Peace signs are very common in Nicaragua. Here's some more of the housing at the dump. Now, unfortunately, the dump is near the lake. Because of all the rain over several years, the lake is rising. And how many families was it? I think there were 24 families were being flooded out as we were there. They were scavenging, retrieving what materials they could. This is somebody's house. But the city supplied them with lumber, sheet roofing, and black plastic. Each of these units is where a family's going to live temporarily. There's our little rental car there. This blue building is the new clinic. Here's some of the children that live at the dump, and as I said, in most cases born at the dump. But the project is going to be constructing a modern recycling facility where 200 adults will be employed in sanitary and safe conditions. And the rest of the people, like that young man you saw, adults are being trained as electricians, bricklayers, carpenters. He's being trained as a carpenter.
And there is a school in the dump, and all of these, from what I was told by one of the community leaders, an older woman named Maritza, all the children go to school, and they're fed. There's 2 school sessions. There's a morning session or an afternoon session. If the kids go to the morning session, they get breakfast, and if they go to afternoon, they get lunch free of charge. So it helps out the parents and the kids a lot. Hungry kids don't really have too much attention for learning at school. This is inside the clinic. That blue building that he pointed out in the picture is a new clinic that was just opened up. Well, it'd be over a year ago now in March. And they have a nurse on duty almost all the time, and the doctor comes a couple times a week, it sounded like. And it's a real nice place, clean. It's completely free of charge. If you're sick, if you're injured, you go there to get taken care of.
5 years ago, when Ortega was finally reelected, healthcare was made universal and free. This is the nurse's office. This says campaign for Pap smear. So we do the Pap smear. There's lots of information about preventing various diseases and coming in for your tests, such and so forth.
This was a poster, a government poster that was hanging up inside the clinic. It says, "Please hug me even though I have AIDS. I can't get you sick." As in a lot of poor countries, there's some stigma about, having AIDS, and it's a serious disease, but this is just kind of a reminder that, you don't get AIDS just by hugging somebody.
And AIDS is not a big problem in Nicaragua, but like with all infectious diseases and transmissible diseases, the government is all over prevention programs and educational programs. We'll talk more about healthcare later, but they are also exemplary to health. Their vaccination program is absolutely excellent. Their program against malaria, their program to decrease infant and child mortality. We'll talk more about that later. Here's a view from the dump again. This is some of the housing. Here, if you look across, you'll see there's a graded, clear area over there. Within the next 2 years, that's where the new housing will be built. All these people will be moved into new housing. There'll be a new school. There'll be 2 soccer fields for the kids. Abra asked Marissa, was she happy? What did she say?
Well, I asked her, are the people here content? Are they happy? Are they content with the government and with how things are going? And she said, contentísima. They're very happy. She said, in the past they've received help from outside organizations, charity groups, and all that. So they weren't completely on their own, but she said that the Nicaraguan government has never helped them. But she said this government is helping us. She said we feel confident knowing that Daniel Ortega, the president of our country, cares about the quality of our lives. And so we're not worried, we're happy, things are getting better. She said this is the only president who's ever cared about us, but we know that he does because of all the work that's being done that directly affects them and increases the quality of life there at the dump. And so I asked, are the people here registered to vote? And she said, yeah, we're all registered to vote. Somebody came down from the mayor's office and made sure everyone who wanted to be registered was registered, and that we all knew the procedure. Our voting place, our polling place is at the school here in the dump. And I said, so do you expect a lot of people to go vote on election day, big turnout? And she said, oh yeah, we're all going to go vote on election day. We're all going to vote for Daniel Ortega.
And they almost did. I read the stats from here. 97% of the people at the dump voted for the president. So yeah, these people, like many people we met in the country, are hopeful for the future. And I'll just throw it in now. There was a poll